Last week on this podcast, I think we had a lot of time to talk about how the Guardians don't hit the ball hard. Not saying the Guardians listen to Locked On Guardians, but the Guardians hit the ball pretty hard on Sunday.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the show. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today.
Jeff, people like to prove us wrong. They like to tell us we're wrong on the podcast. Obviously, the Guardians are trying to tell us.
Speaking of people telling us things, better fix my height
on the camera so I don't get yelled at again. No, the Guardians love to people love to tell us we're wrong all the time, and the Guardians are joining that club. Of said last week they don't hit the ball hard, and what did they do this weekend? They hit the ball pretty hard, and turns out that's actually a good thing. I don't know if they realized that before this weekend. Maybe we made them hip to something they didn't realize before. But good weekend for the Guardians. Good weekend for the September call-ups. Kyle Manzardo and Alex Cobb, who counts as a September call-up. We'll talk about that. If the Guardians are ready to take control, this is like the third series win in a row where we're going to ask, are the Guardians finally ready to get back on a roll and put some distance between themselves and the Royals? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about who the Guardians need to step up most in order to finish off this job, and we'll talk more about minor league performances in Minor League Monday. Lots to get to. I had 2 interviews in the last week with back-to-back first-round picks, Jeff. Good ones.
Mike Pappy and Bradley Zimmer. I mean, technically those two were taken back-to-back, right? Weren't they?
That's true.
They the same? Or was it Justice Sheffield was between them? I'm sorry.
Justice Sheffield.
Well, that was the one class, wasn't it? Wasn't it Zimmer, Sheffield, Pappy? But before we get into any of these fun, and by fun, I mean horrific, memory lane, I am Jeff Ellis, one of your 2 co-hosts here, one of the original hosts for Locked On MLB podcasting in general. Before that, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst nationally at Scott 24/7. And before that, I have to remind me on this one, but this is a good one. I was your 34th favorite blogger that has or ever will exist for a Cleveland sports blog. This one's actually a little bit of a fun one that I stumbled upon today.
What was Friday? Do you remember?
It was
writing these down.
It was 7 because that's how many runs they scored in that one game, right? That was I think you were guessing 7 for something else. I'm like, oh no, it's really simple.
Kenny Lofton.
Yeah. You said Kenny Lofton, but I believe it's just because of they scored 7 runs.
Okay, so 34. We'll see what 34 is. That's pretty low. Jeff's always number 1 in my heart. I'm Justin Latta. I have been covering the Guardians farm system since 2007. I did see a lot of Mike Pappy and a lot of Justice Sheffield and a lot of Bradley Zimmer. And I believed in all of those plays. I did not believe in much as Mike Pappy as the rest of them. But I have written about those guys and other ones for places like Guardians Baseball Insider, the News Herald, the Morning Journal, Next Year in Cleveland, Prospects Live, and I've talked about them here and on my other podcast. But before we get to all that, we changed up our schedule. We told you Friday we were not going to do a Monday episode because of the holiday, but Jeff and I were texting, and we like the good vibes. We know you like the good vibes, and the Guardians had a good weekend, and Alex Cobb was taking a perfect game into the 6th inning, and I was like, well, if this happens, we cannot not do a podcast Monday. And then they played so well, we decided to say, screw it anyway, let's just do it. But
wonder,
to be honest, I didn't know Alex Cobb was throwing a perfect game until I heard Matt Underwood say 15 up, 15 down. I was watching the game. I briefly took a break to do some vacuuming and other stuff, but I was watching the game and he said 15 up, 15 down. I was like, oh, there's been no base runners. Not bad for a guy with 9.5 fingernails who hasn't made a start in 18 days.
Still probably one of the 5 best starters traded at the deadline. That's how bad. This was the cut a weekend for everyone who was traded.
How many teams wish they had traded for Alex Cobb right now?
And Giants fans are already telling me that
sent down Trevor Rogers.
Yeah, I've got a lot of Trevor Rogers back to AAA. Though Zach Eflin, funnily enough, also was taking a perfect game through 5 today. I don't know how that ended up turning out. We had a cookout, so I had to stop paying attention to baseball, I was told. It was fun to watch. There's still never been a no-hitter in my lifetime. I was born a few months after the last one. So there's that. But I think the fun thought exercise, though, is would he have been allowed to stay in with as little as he has pitched? Like, how long?
No.
Yeah,
He
that's
said
what I
no.
thought. But I think the fun thing is I was looking at his pitch usage, and I'll tell you what, if you can throw a splitter. I had actually a weekend conversation with Eno Saris about this
I saw
because
that. Yeah.
Francis Bowden added a splitter and he's unhittable. And I asked him was like, I'll go listen to my 40 minutes of Cal Quantrell conversations because I wanted to be like, because Cal this year, why is he a different pitcher? He started throwing the splitter like 20% more, more than 10% more, not 20. It's probably like 10, but still. And you know what? Alex Cobb throws 40% of the time, a splitter.
Splitters.
He's
46%. He had 37 of them on Sunday.
Yeah, and 46 is a new high. Like his career has been around like 38, 39, occasionally getting to 41, 42. 46 is a high watermark. He essentially just became a two-pitch pitcher. It was all sinker. And normally that's about like 81 to 82% of his pitches, but it's close to 90% of his pitches, where with the knuckle curve being the only other one. He used to throw a slider a bit, but he was like, okay, I'm going to throw these two. And he didn't need anything else.
Ton of ground balls. Yeah, that'll play. They were just pounding the ball on the ground. The Pirates, did not have like the Guardians on. I will say on Saturday, because the Guardians did get shut out on Saturday on 2 hits. Brian Reynolds took away at least 3 hits and a run batted in from Lane Thomas. So like the Guardians had chances. Not saying their approach was great Saturday, but they had chances, and Brian Reynolds, I think, single-handedly defensively kept them off the board multiple times. But on Sunday, Cobb was really good, and I kind of wonder if the he only threw 10 curveballs. I wonder if some of that had to do with the fact that the nail, or he's just managing his pain, and the nail's still growing back, all that kind of stuff. So
he didn't need it.
He didn't need it. He got away with basically being a 2-pitch pitcher against the Pirates,
which we've seen with some guys. Like if you got a sinker and you got that slinker, if you got a sinker and a split,
a slinker.
If you got a sinker and a split,
slitter, but
if you got those 2 pitches, those 2 can be such workhorses for you that you don't even sometimes. That's like the one case where you don't even always need that 3rd pitch. You just need it. Probably. I wonder if he threw it against anyone other than lefties today.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to assume he's going to need more than those pitches against the Dodgers, which will be his next start in LA. So I'd assume the Pirates are one thing, but I don't know if he'll be able to do it against the Dodgers. But it was more than good enough to win in a game they absolutely needed to win, and he dominated them, and the Guardians had enough offense thanks to Kyle Manzardo, who, of course, the Guardians knew when they called up September 1st. It was like, all right, this is the guy we need. You know that point in the movie where you're watching and it's like, okay, you can tell the protagonist is like going to acquire the thing that they need to finish the story, to beat the bad guy, to have the happy ending. That was obviously what the Guardians were thinking with Kyle Manzardo, right? They were struggling in August, and it was like the low point of the movie. They were waiting for the apex, and they were like, okay, this is the point in the movie where the protagonists, the Guardians, get their acquired knowledge, or they complete this thing where they're ready to come back and redeem the story arc. That was what they were doing all along by waiting for Kyle Manzardo, right? They were just waiting until they had the fans fooled at the lowest that, oh, they're going to blow this division. We're going to call Kyle Manzardo up, and we're going to have a happy ending. That's what they were doing, right? That's why they were waiting all this time?
No,
it was for the plot, right?
No, they were stuck in a situation where they had to play. They didn't have a spot for him.
Really just ruined the whole drive between that. No, it was. They were waiting for rosters to expand, because you look at it now. There's some people who are like, why didn't they do more at the September calls? Why just Manzardo? And then Cobb took a spot because they didn't need to make a move to add him. I'm sure there will be other moves coming the rest of the month. I don't think this is it, for what it's worth. I don't think this is it. I think there'll be other moves they make in September. The roster is not at its final form in terms of what they're going to look like come playoff time. But I think we all realize Manzardo was coming up. The roster's in a weird spot because you've got, again, David Fry, who can't play anywhere else but first or DH or pinch hit. And then you've got Josh Naylor, who, everybody had them holding their breath on Friday after he went down in a heap down the right field line after he turned his foot, and then somehow is back in the lineup the next day because he's a hockey player. I don't know. So you got those two, who are essentially 2 positions, DH and first base. You've got John Kensington, who plays right field. Okay, better than I expected, but really more of a first baseman. And then you're also going to call up Kyle Manzardo. So it's like you've got essentially 4 4 first basemen on your roster at this point, and they don't even want to play Manzardo at first base for whatever. I can't comprehend it. I'm not saying he's like a great first baseman, but Josh Naylor, who continually just makes you worry that his leg is going to buckle and just be done.
And his defense has regressed this year.
It has. So it's
pretty
like
bad. Naylor's defense last year was solid. It's bad this year.
Yeah, I can't really explain the Manzardo thing. Maybe they're just like, oh, let's just focus on hitting, but sometimes there's that whole degree of if the guy's got to go play a position, he won't carry his struggles as much offensively. But Manzardo didn't have any offensive struggles on Sunday, and turns out hitting the ball hard is a good thing. But they have like 4 first basemen, which is really weird. And for the team that valued positional flexibility all year and versatility, it's like you're hanging on to Freeman and Sheeman at this point because you need coverage in different spots. And you've got, Lane Thomas and Brennan and weird other outfield combinations. And you no longer have 3 catchers, what made you so versatile at one point, made you so dynamic. Now you've got 4 first basemen. It reminds me of the 2015 version of this team where they had Nick Swisher, David Murphy, and Brandon Moss for, they had 3 first basemen / DHs rotating between right field, and it wasn't good. This version is a little better, thank God. But that version of 2015 where they had 3 first baseman DHs, playing those 2 spots. But those guys didn't hit the ball anywhere near as hard as the Guardians did on Sunday. Kyle Manzardo has been building towards this. It feels like. I know August wasn't like a great month for him, but this last week,
lots of power.
Columbus was really good. Yeah. He had hit a couple of balls that were like 105, 104 in AAA. You could see the power there, and his 2 home runs on Sunday were 106 and 107. I mean, those were, laser shots. The only balls that those didn't get out in were Oracle Park in San Francisco, which is the hardest, I think, ballpark in baseball to hit a home run at. But I will say the timing of it worked out well for the Guardians. But I will say this: there has been research. I've said this multiple times. There has been research by the Guardians and other organizations that they do a lot of research on is when is the right time to call somebody up, and the research always leads them to when a player's playing well and has confidence in the minor. So it just happened to work out like it this time, because I mean, if September was 2 weeks away, we'd still be waiting. But there is something to be said for a guy playing well in AAA right before you call him up. And hey, Kyle Manzardo,
confidence
in AAA, and the Pirates wish he would have stayed down in AAA and faced the Indianapolis Indians.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the psychology of baseball. Like right there, it is right. Like things have a better chance to carry over when you think they will, when you think they can.
Yeah, you feel like what you're doing is working, so you're not tempted to tinker, and you feel like you're going to go up there and whatever I do, I'm going to hit the ball hard, and it's going to be a good result. And that's what Kyle Manzardo did on Sunday. That's what he was doing in AAA. We will talk about some of the guys who weren't called up. We'll talk about Emmanuel Clase and his spot at the top of the Guardians record books. We'll get into if the Guardians are finally going to make something of their recent stretch of good play and actually put some distance between themselves and the Royals, and how they're going to finish the job, all coming up here on the rest of the Labor Day edition of Locked On Guardians. Thanks for being with us.
You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Right now, I was looking at some of the fun chasing history bets over at FanDuel. And one of them is will Jose Ramirez join the 40-40 club? I'm going to lean towards the no at -174, considering he's at 28 stolen bases. I know that's not fun. Will Marcell Osuna win the Triple Crown? I would say no. Though at -1600, what's the point? One I did kind of like is Jackson Churio, who's been hitting everything inside of late, that he would be a 2020 player. I kind of lean towards yes at -196. If they have a separate one just for Ohtani in here. It's let's see, division winners. Last one before I do the rest. 3 for the American League Central, Cleveland -260. Everyone else is plus 360 is the next closest. So heading back to the main read, then when you have a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So again, if you have a YouTube base plan, you're Betting $5 gets you 3 weeks of NFL Sunday Ticket. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook.
Check out our pal Check out our pal Sully over at Locked On MLB. Our pal cannot be a podcast, but the host is our pal Sully. Locked On MLB, talking about the AL Central race, talking about Shohei Ohtani, talking about Rookie of the Year, all that fun stuff over at Locked On MLB. So if you want to check out the best storylines going on around baseball, the Royals getting swept by the Astros that helped the Guardians, I'm sure he'll cover that. Go listen to Locked On MLB after you're done listening to us, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jeff, I forgot to bring this up at the start of the show, but I will bring it up now before we get into Emmanuel Clase. Tickets are being sold for the Guardians playoff game. Yeah, I'm sure people are. The Captain's playoff game, September 12th at Classic Auto Group Park. I will be there. If you buy your tickets from this code we're showing on YouTube, and I'll put it in the episode description wherever you get your podcast, click on that link and buy your tickets to the game. Hang out with us during the game, at least me, and we'll video chat with Jeff at some point. Use promo code Lockdown for 20% off. Come hang out. It'll be a fun night. I don't know whether or not Travis Bazzano will be there. He had a great weekend. The Akron Rubber Ducks are going to be in the playoffs in the Eastern League. I wonder if Cleveland will make a bump for him.
They do like to see those guys move up.
They do. Speaking of moving up, Emmanuel Clase is now the all-time leader in saves in Guardians history, and that happened very fast. I mean, for a guy who didn't pitch in 2020, who was not even the full-time closer in 2021. Remember, they started the year out with James Karinchak and him splitting saves, mostly because Emmanuel Clase was not under a club deal yet. He was still arbitration eligible, and saves are what gets you paid in arbitration. But funny how as soon as the Guardians got him locked up to a long-term deal, he was the closer. So they could control his pay, because I can tell you he'd be making a boatload of money in arbitration right now. I hope he got some incentives in there for breaking the record, because this happened fast.
And, we don't have the time to do it today. We'll eventually do the trade tree, because it's pretty humorous that you can follow this trade tree all the way back down to Jerry Dubinsky, who's a Cleveland, Ohio kid, went to Collinwood High School, went to Cleveland State, and you can follow the trade tree from him in the late 70s all the way to Clase, which is kind of phenomenal. But again, we don't have the time to handle that on the show today. I'm trying to play. So it took Clase 286 games to get to 150. Allen set his record in 456 games. Though in fairness to Allen, the first 104, the first 104 games of his career, he was behind Chris Perez. So, but still, Allen for Clase, 286 games, 150 saves. For Allen, it would have been like 300 games to get to 149. So it's unbelievable for him to set that. He's the greatest closer of our lifetime. That's not even up for debate. He is Cleveland. If you are making an all-time Cleveland Guardians team, he is the closer. Full stop. End of story. I'm not debating you.
What, third is Wickman, right? Or is third Perez?
In saves?
Yeah.
It's Wickman.
I'm trying to remember when Allen passed Wickman to break that record, because
it was like 2 or 3 seasons out. I mean, Wickman's like in the 130s, 120s.
Because I mean, towards the end of Allen's career, obviously his
last year was not great. Yeah,
he was hanging by a thread, so he'd already broken it by then.
Yeah.
I mean, Clase is just on a path. I mean, he's already on a path to being a Hall of Famer. He really is. Like, there's literally one comparison to him right now, and it's Mariano Rivera, which is absolutely insane, because it's hard for closers to get in the Hall of Fame. We haven't really had a chance to talk about the Cy Young thing with him, and he's not going to win Cy Young. It's
the funny thing too is he set the record and he gave up his first run since May or June.
It was his second home run all year. It was Andrew McCutcheon of all people.
Yeah, but it was first run since May or June. First run since May or June. It took his ERA up to 0.71. So on the day he set the record, he might have actually made it harder for him to win. But like, it's not as good of a year. Like, when Zach Britton had his great year, Corey Kluber was fantastic. Like, the one thing that stinks is you almost have to root against the Tigers, which maybe doesn't stink for everyone, but like the Tigers are playing really well of late, which is just helping Scooble's chances. But he's got to be top 3. I don't think it's going to be really hard for a reliever to get there, but I think he's got to be. If you're voting and you don't put him in the top 3, then you have a real reliever bias, which I can't necessarily fault. But he's been just so good.
Yeah, I mean, you have Tariq Skubal to me is definitely number one. Number two, you probably make a quick case for Corbin Burns, but hasn't he been kind of shaky lately? Like I'm
Yeah,
looking at
he has not
just
been
going
as
by
good of
FIP
late.
among starters. I mean, yeah, I think Tariq Skubal. After that, there's Garrett Crochet, but I mean, his ERA is a little bit higher, and let's be honest, he's not going to get a whole lot of love because he pitches for a team that is the worst team I've ever seen in my life.
And there's going to be people
that's including the 03 Tigers.
Yeah, and there's going to be people that hold some of that stuff that came out at the deadline and be like, he's not a real, Seth Lugo might get some chatter, but it's like Cole Reagan's potentially could get some.
His FIP is below 3 now, so yeah, maybe. If Clase, there's no reason for Clase not to be in the top 5, and I think you can make an argument for top 3 even because it's a wide open year. I mean, there are definitely good pitchers out there this season. Skubal to me is far and away the best. I would if I had a ballot, I would say as of right now, I would probably go Skubal. I'd probably go Crochet, and then I think I'd probably go Clase above Cole Reagans. I don't know. I mean, Reagans has thrown 160 innings. They've been really good ones. I know Crochet hasn't had the volume either, but he plays in the worst team in baseball, and it's his first season starting. I don't know if that necessarily means I should give him more credit for any of that, but he's been really, really dominant.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think there's a top 3 argument there.
Call me a homer, but I'm going.
Kate Smith number 1. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go again, Tarek Skubal, and then I go Clase, and then I'm probably going Cole Reagans.
That's fair.
Because the one thing too, it's like Crochet doesn't have enough to like qualify yet. Like he's not on any of the listings because he's not enough to even qualify.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically neither is Clase because he's only
I know because he's a reliever, but
64 innings, yeah,
and he's got a 283 FIP for but like as a starter, the fact he doesn't qualify kind of hurts him, and I think his FIP is the second best, better than Skubal or Reagans. Well, we'll go with Reagans, who's had a few more starts. I mean, I'd probably have Crochet like 4 or 5. With probably Seth Lugo as well. I mean, Kansas City, give them credit, they're probably gonna have 2. If I had a ballot, they'd have 2 of the top 5 guys.
2 top 10. Can we also go back to I think we're pretty fair in terms of how we evaluate the front office and evaluate this team. We are. I feel like we're pretty unbiased. Can we go back to? Can we go back to
definitely some people who would disagree with us, but
that's true.
I think we
disagree. I feel like we tend to toe the line. Can we go back to this trade? This is exactly what I know. We're not going to go into the trade tree today, but just go back to the Guardians trading 1 inning of Corey Kluber. And of course, nobody knew at the time of the trade there was going to be a pandemic and a 60-game season, and nobody knew Corey Kluber was going to have an arm injury that cost him all of those 60 games minus 1 inning. But that's a big risk, right? To trade the guy who has basically carried your team to the World Series that season, who has been the best pitcher, I think, in the modern era for Cleveland.
Yeah, 100%.
To trade him for a reliever who mostly nobody knew about, and a guy who was like a 5th outfielder at best that nobody really felt good about.
I still stand, and at the time I stood by it. I think DeShields was just there to balance money. That's all he was, and they didn't have anyone better.
I remember the reactions on Twitter just saying, "Well, there has to be a third player in this deal because
I thought there would be
sense."
I
guess I thought there would. I didn't know who Clase was. I gotta be honest, I didn't.
I mean, I knew him. I knew he was phenomenal, and I thought him in '99 would be one heck of a bullpen. Like I thought I had a chance to be the best 1-2 punch in baseball. But I definitely, I'd heard that they had a deal with multiple position players from the Angels, so it was shocking to see them go the other way for a reliever. I know Lenny Rengifo was one of those pieces.
I just remember seeing the reactions from people who were just saying this makes no sense. The Guardians are going to pay for this. It doesn't make any sense. And this is one of those things where for all the Junior Camaneros and
this is
thing that doesn't make any sense. This is the kind of stuff.
Junior Caminero. Like this is I mean, and honestly, like David Fries as well. For as much as people, myself included, get upset about some of those deals, it's like they do that to other teams more than it gets done to them.
And there's a reason why we're sitting here on Labor Day and the Guardians had a terrible August, and every team. Look, this is a wide open season. There are no super teams right now. The Dodgers look like a super team, but they've had their moments this season as well. This is why we're sitting here looking at a roster that's like, okay, they've done really good this year. Do we believe this? Doesn't make sense. And we're sitting here on September 1st, and it's not as if they're they're winning a division. You know, everybody joked coming into the year that I even said whoever wins 85 games wins the division. Well, it's going to take more than 85 to win the division now, and this is not an easy division. And the Guardians are sitting here September 1st, 3.5 games up, and you know, the roster may not look perfect, but they found a way to piece the stuff together. And I think a lot of it's this, again, it's the bullpen that's carried them most of the year. And this bullpen doesn't get to where they're going without Emmanuel Clase. Cade Smith has been unbelievable. He might be the most important reliever in the bullpen because he gets to play the Andrew Miller role versus the Cody Allen role that Clase is in. And Hunter Gaddis has been spectacular. Tim Herron's been spectacular. We'll talk about him a little bit, but none of this happens without Clase, without having him at the back end to really keep things in alignment. Like, go back to 95. Everybody said that bullpen was good in 95 because Jose Mesa stepped into the role and he solidified that role, and it allows everybody else to fall in the line. And that's what they've done with Clase. So it's a big piece of why they're here. And it's just, again, the guy's on a Hall of Fame track. You're gonna have one day, you're gonna have Jose Ramirez and Emmanuel Clase giving Hall of Fame speeches, and that's unbelievable for someone who's watched one Hall of Famer go in as a Cleveland member in his lifetime to see Jose and Clase likely do that in the future. That's something. All right. Are the Guardians finally going to take control of this division behind Emmanuel Clase and Jose Ramirez? We will get into that next. Well, I am trying to get my friends to commit to going to an Ohio State game this year. I haven't quite picked out the game yet, and there are conflicting things going on between our group that's going to go. But the reason I feel confident that I'm going to get a good deal and I'm going to find a date that works for all of us is because I'm going to use Game Time to buy the tickets, because they show me the prices for each game. They have amazing deals. They have great deals. They show you all the super deal. They have all that stuff. And it tells you if you're getting a great deal on these tickets for what they normally sell for where you're sitting based on price, all that fun stuff. So you really know what kind of deal you're getting based on the game. And I always turn on the all-in pricing feature when I use the Game Time app, because it tells me how much I'm going to be paying out the door. How much is each ticket going to cost with everything included? So I don't get to check out and I think, oh, I just bought a ticket for $100, and all of a sudden I get a checkout and here's $140. Where did that come from? If you turn in the all-in pricing on Game Time, you know up front there are no surprises, and I know the deals are going to get better as closer we get to the date. So when we finally pick out a date for Ohio State and we're going to go, I can buy later feeling comfortable because I know ticket prices are going to drop closer to the date of the game. So that's super helpful. All good things in Game Time if you are someone who is buying last minute, and use the all-in pricing like I do to get that all up front and taken care of. Take the guesswork out of buying game tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but to create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Guardians back in action at 4:10 Eastern on Labor Day. Check out all the action in your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians. Running out of time in today's show. We're trying to keep this one quick and tight so we can get back to our daily lives. Are the Guardians finally going to take control of this division, Jeff? We've seen, the Yankees game, the comeback, thought, okay, this is where they turn things around. And then they beat the Rangers. And we thought, okay, is this where they finally turn things around? And they didn't. And they struggled against the Royals. The offense has shown signs the last few weeks of doing things. The offense on Sunday has looked as good as it's looked all year. I mean, this is the reason I think the offense has looked as good as it has all year on Sunday is because they hit the ball hard. I mean, they weren't just there was no need for BABIP luck. I mean, Jose Ramirez, 109 home run. Kyle Manzardo, 107.9 home run. Jose Ramirez, 107 single. Noel, who gets one strike a game for some reason, and he punishes it.
He takes care of it.
He takes care of it. Once he gets the strike, it's like, okay, you're paying for it. 106 off the bat of Manzardo. Lane Thomas, 104. Hey, even Brian Rocchio had a single over 100 miles an hour. So, they actually hit the ball hard on Sunday. And they beat a team they should. This team, it's weird. Early in the year, we talked about how they were good against good teams, and they struggled against the White Sox and other weird teams. And then lately, it's like, okay, they're beating the teams they should, but they're having a hard time now against teams they need to beat. So, are the Guardians finally going to, I hate saying the word momentum because I don't think it exists, but are the Guardians finally going to turn this into something where they can put some distance again between themselves and the Royals starting today? You've got Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams, and Ben Lively in the series. Three of your most talented pitchers. I know Boyd and Cobb have been remarkable, just unbelievable. This is a big moment for Tanner Bybee. It's a big step for Gavin Williams to finally get him doing something you need him to do. And then Ben Lively's been as solid as they come all year. And you got Clase rested on Sunday. No, Gaddis and Smith were rested on Saturday, so they can go back-to-back days to start the series off. Again, they should be in position to do something, right?
If Rocchio doesn't blow the transfer.
Here we go. I know.
It's been a rough weekend for him. I at least have to say that. Like, it was a very rough weekend for him. But here's why I think yes. So when they had the success, like, okay, so the Yankees was one game against Texas. It's not so much even the hard hit for me, though. That's great. Don't get me wrong. It's more about consistent production. So Josh Naylor on Friday and Sunday hit the ball well. He hit the ball well on Saturday, just didn't have as much to show for it. Lane Thomas, I mean,
on one foot.
Lane Thomas has now done something in 5 straight games, and I'm not counting his pinch hit at bat. He still probably should have had a single on that. He was close to doing something in 6 straight games and knocking in the tying run.
Saturday?
That was Saturday, yeah. So
that Reynolds took a hit away.
Yeah,
from it. It was off the wall.
Then he would be at 6 straight games having done something. Like, for all the gripping on him, it's like that. He's been a league average bat for like 3 years. He's going to be a league average bat, so he's due for a super hot stretch. And Naylor, like I said, 2 games, and he's had some bad bat pips. So that's like, we knew at some point that was going to balance out. It'll balance out for Quan. He had a great first game, then not much after that. And I think it's Manzardo. It's a change of the lineup. David Fry had been playing better of late, but he was still a below league average bat. They have a platoon here that could be very good. Like, it could be very good. Fry still punishes lefties. Manzardo. Mitch Keller is a good pitcher. I know he's not been great in August, but he is a good pitcher, and Manzardo punished him. So you're looking at just a lineup upgrade plus some consistent
Mitch
performance.
Keller was an all-star, by the way.
Yeah. And you're looking for consistent performance. Like, again, it's Naylor has played better over the last week. Lane Thomas has put together things in 5 straight games. If you have Lane Thomas hitting 7th and he's able to do, and I sat here and told all of you about how bad his defense was. He hasn't looked bad in center to me. I got to look at the numbers and the stats, but he has made some nice plays out there. I don't know if maybe his range isn't the best, but I had reports that he's a terrible defender. He's made some nice plays in center field. So, if you have him down the lineup with his speed, it causes problems to teams. You're just asking him to be closer to average. Naylor slowly getting it back on track after kind of an abysmal time. You add in Manzardo. That's why I think they're ready to take control. It's consistency and roster changes.
Yeah, the Royals did just lose Vinny Pasquantino for basically the year.
For Gurriel, who hasn't played at all this year, was who they brought in today. I know they also had a Grossman and Pham.
Yeah, they tried to do the Moneyball thing, right, where they tried to replace Pasquantino in the aggregate, which I don't blame them. I would have, as a fantasy owner of Nick Pratto, I would have liked to have seen Nick Pratto, but he never got it going. So I don't know. It's going to be hard for them to replace Pasquantino. So even without the Guardians on their own, Pasquantino was absolutely just destroying the ball against the Guardians last week. So they don't have him anymore. And I think the Guardians are just due for a hot stretch. I think the question is, like, is the team that was good in April through June, do they still exist? I think they do. And I think they're better with a Manzardo and Fry platoon at this point. You're right. I think that having that really helps them. By the way, Alex Cobb came off the DL and was IL, and it was perfect through 6 innings.
Didn't get a ball into the outfield until the 6th inning.
Matt Boyd was incredible on Saturday. I know he's not pitching in the series, but you, at least, again, you have your best foot forward here, right? Maybe Boyd and Cobb are your best foot. I know Gavin and Tanner are going this series, and these are supposed to be your 2 aces, but man, the way Cobb and Boyd have looked, this is the best the rotation has been all season long. If the lineup finally finds its way, if Quan can start turning things around, Jimenez had a good weekend. He's been good for a few weeks now. Like you said, Naylor, Jose just looks like Jose again, which is great. Noel, as long as he gets 1 strike a game, he's going to do something with it. And pitchers, for some reason, keep throwing him strikes. And then having Manzardo is a huge bonus to this. And I don't think, like you said, I don't think the roster is its final form yet. I think there is still a chance to see other players. I wanted to get into that today about guys who weren't called up and talk about that, but we don't have time.
You got to talk Bazana today. Let's do our minor league Monday. Talk about Travis. We've been promising that for like a half a week now.
Yeah. All right. Real quick. Do the Guardians take 2 or 3 against the Royals? Do they do it? They finally do it. The Royals lost on Sunday. They're 3.5 back. Do they go in I'm going to say they're not going to get swept.
I'm going to say they're going to. I'm going to say, let's see, it's tough matchups too. Like I like
Waka
Banner.
really crushed them the last time.
Yeah, Waka and Lugo versus Lively. Lively hasn't been a sharper late. Is it? I think they're gonna take 2 out of 3. They're gonna figure it out. Kansas City is sputtering. Cleveland is hot. This reminds me of when Cleveland went in and took the lead from Minnesota for a day in 2019, and then everything fell apart after that. So far, it's mirroring that. Maybe this is me getting cocky. Maybe the Royals can come in and tell me, your fans can laugh at me when I get this wrong. But yes, they're going to take 2 out of 3. They're taking Tanner's game, and Gavin is going to be the really good version of Gavin, and they're going to have seen Waka too much recently, and they're going to be able to hit it this time.
Yeah, again, if Tanner made 2 bad pitches his last start, I think he'll be better this start. So I'm going to say 2 or 3. They'll win the Tanner start, and they will win one or the other in this start. All right, very quickly, we'll talk Travis Bazzana. We didn't really have a lot of time to talk about Minor League Monday today, so it'll be Minor League Tuesday, I guess. But I did get a chance to talk to Bazzana last week, and I don't know if I didn't have a chance to talk about it on air, I don't think, but I just came away, again, super impressed. Everything you hear about Travis Bazzana, I 100% confirm. Like, I believe everything Jeff Pons told us multiple times this year, but everything you hear is just absolutely true. I mean, the guy is engaging, passionate about baseball, really smart, very focused. It's just hard. I mean, again, everything you hear is true. I think he understands exactly who he is. He understands what he wants to do, who he wants to be. I mean, I asked him about, studying baseball and back when he was like a kid and watching games on TV or watching clips on MLB.com. And he talked about Jose Ramirez, and you can just tell the difference in the whole interview was great. And I'll put it on my YouTube eventually and I'll share it. But you could tell the difference in his inflection and just his energy in general about Jose Ramirez, because he talked about Jose was one of the guys that he would watch on MLB.com and he admired, and he would, try to learn what made him so good. And I asked him what it was like to finally get a chance to meet him. And his attitude just went from like awesome to like a different level. You could tell how much he admired Jose, just talking about how good he is in terms of getting better and just what he expects of himself, what he expects of his teammates, how he goes about his work, how serious he takes things and winning and just being good, but also being himself and not being afraid to be, goofy and a little bit cocky and just a lot of fun. Like he described him as the perfect clubhouse guy. He knows when to be serious and how to get better and exactly what to work on to get better. But he also knows when to be himself and let his personality out, like the Mario Kart stuff and just the off the cuff stuff he says. He just said he's the perfect teammate in the clubhouse. And like I said, his whole mood change was just went from being a great interview to even better interview when he talked about Jose Ramirez. You can tell how much it meant to him. And Bazzana had a good weekend. He had a double and a home run on Sunday. And I just think he's starting to really take off at high A. And again, I kind of wonder, like, Akron's going to be in the playoffs. So is Lake County. And they need players there too. But, I kind of wonder if they might let Bazzana get the taste of Akron. He's about to hit 100 plate appearances in high A. And it looks like he's starting to figure it out. So I wonder if they might let him get a taste of double A before this is all over. I also talked to Ralphie on Friday, so I will get back with that on Minor League Monday as well.
Yep. We want to thank you all for joining us on this special edition. We might take off Friday to balance it out, but we'll kind of play it by ear. Thank you again. We want to thank all of our everydayers and everyone who's listening for your first place Cleveland Guardians. And go, Guardians, go.